This conference will now be recorded.
Good day, everyone, and thank you for joining the 7th chapter in our monthly Cybersecurity Canada webinar series. Today's topic is Provide Employee Awareness Training, featuring Ian MacMillan, Chief Product Officer and co-founder of Beauceron Security Inc. My name is Brendan Dunphy, and I'm the Director of Trust and Compliance with CyberNB, CyberNB, and I will be your host today. For any new participants joining today, I do a brief overview of Cybersecurity Canada before we get started, and then I turn the presentation over to our industry guest speaker, who will be presenting on today's topic. This webinar is recorded. Participants can ask questions via the chat box, and we'll address questions during our Q&A portion at the end of the presentation, time permitting, of course. But if there is any questions that are not addressed, they can be asked via email to info@beauceronsecurity.com or info@cybernb.ca. So let's get started. The focus of CyberNB's Trust and Compliance program is to help organizations of all sizes operate safely in the digital economy. Canadian businesses must ensure their systems, operational processes, and data are secure. This is especially true for small and medium-sized organizations, which often lack the resources that large organizations have to continually monitor threats. CyberNB connects businesses with accreditation bodies and certification bodies so they can mitigate risks and obtain required certification. Our trust and compliance initiatives include liaising with national and international certification bodies, helping businesses obtain required certification accreditation, and promoting best practices in assessing vulnerabilities and threats, and also expanding market opportunities to compete with supply chains that require accreditation. So what is Cybersecurity Canada? Cybersecurity Canada is a voluntary cybersecurity certification developed by the federal government of Canada. It was designed with the following goals in mind: to improve Canada's small and medium organizations' cybersecurity baseline, raise awareness and educate all Canadians about cybersecurity, increase consumer confidence in the digital economy of Canada. It is based on 13 control areas found in the baseline cybersecurity controls for small and medium organizations. So the controls are shown here on the screen. For example, backup and encrypt your data. You must ensure business critical data is backed up to facilitate quick recovery from an incident. Enable security software. Ensure your devices are protected from malicious code with anti-malware solutions. And our topic today, provide employee awareness training. So for the sake of time, of course, I'm not going to go in depth on all these controls today. But if you'd like more detail on each of these controls, please visit our website, cybernb.ca, and select the Learn More button under Cybersecurity Canada. Human error while using information systems remains an element of too many cybersecurity incidents. As a first line of defense, organizations should train employees on basic security practices. Organizations should focus on practical and easy implementable measures. For employee awareness training, Cybersecurity Canada recommends a training program focused on the use of effective password policies, the identification of malicious emails and links, the use of approved software, the appropriate usage of the internet, and the safe use of social media. Under this control topic, there is one control, and that is Baseline Control 6.1. Organizations shall invest in cybersecurity awareness and training for their employees. But what will the certification body be checking for when they're reviewing their submission? For the Provide Employee Awareness Training control topic, the certification body will need to confirm the organization has provided indication that the employee training is compulsory in the organization. They will also have to provide a course outline of the training program and the frequency the training is delivered. And the training outline will need to identify that it covers basic cybersecurity practices such as effective use of the organization's password policy, identification of malicious emails and links, and use of approved software, and of course, the appropriate usage of internet and social media. Getting started is easy. If you want to start the Cybersecurity Canada process, you can navigate to our website, cybernb.ca/trust and compliance, and select the Get Started button underneath Cybersecurity Canada. This will direct you to our secure online portal. From here, you can process the Cybersecurity Canada certification requirements. Our portal is powered by Microsoft Azure and utilizes their robust security functionalities as well as the multi-factor authentication. To register, just select the button on the right side of the screen, and the cost for registration is $350 plus tax, and this will include access to the portal, which will clearly demonstrate the control requirements as well as the required supporting evidence to support the controls and achieve successful certification. When completing certification requirements in the portal, you will be presented with a series of statements. We refer to them as statements due to by selecting the implemented radio button, you are attesting that the statement is true and that your organization has implemented this control. So for example, on the slide, you'll see statement 11, which provides compliance for baseline control 1.3. Organizations shall consider purchasing a cybersecurity insurance policy that includes coverage for incident response and recovery activities, or provide a rationale for not purchasing one. So by clicking that implemented button, the organization is stating that that statement is true, and below it's asking you to please provide information like your formal documents, policy, procedure, or screenshot that would attest to that control. And for this instance, it's asking you to provide your organization's cybersecurity insurance policy certificate or the rationale for not purchasing insurance. You will notice that the Submit for Certification button at the bottom of the screen is grayed out. You will not be able to submit for certification until you complete all 51 statements required for Cybersecurity Canada certification. Once you complete that, the button will light up, Submit for Certification, and we will contact you with a list of the 4 available certification bodies to choose from, and they will review that for you. Cybersecurity Canada accreditation bodies include Bulletproof Solutions, Cybersecurity Canada, SourceTech IT, and WATSEC Cyber Risk Management. At any step along the way, should you require assistance, you can request a practitioner to provide you with professional implementation and guidance support. They can assist you with all aspects from general implementation questions or information about controls, all the way up to logging into the portal for you and implementing all the required controls on your behalf. Getting certified can now save you money on cyber insurance. We are very pleased to inform you of our agreement with Hub International, which ensures all organizations processing cyber certification through our secure online portal will not only be eligible for cybersecurity insurance, but will also receive a 10% discount off of regular standard rates for cybersecurity insurance. It underscores the point that cyber insurance is a must-have and not just a standalone protection. Your other business policies, from professional liability to umbrella coverage, may have gaps in how well they protect you, and cyber insurance can close those gaps. If you'd like more information about the Hub insurance offering, you can find that on our website under the Trust. As part of our monthly Spotlight series, we will be showcasing a specific partner and their unique offering to the Cybersecurity Canada program. January's Partner Spotlight features Beauceron Security. Beauceron's cloud platform goes beyond security awareness. They help individuals, teams, and organizations make better decisions about their cyber risk. I can tell you CyberNB SIPNet is a customer of Beauceron and has seen value in their employee awareness platform and the phishing simulation programs. We see Beauceron as a leader in the industry with their unique cloud platform that will not only ensure your employees are aware of possible cyber risks, but also will understand their role in protecting the organization's data. We have a partner spotlight page on our website that has a blog featuring, written by Beauceron's own Ian MacMillan. Please visit our website, check it out. Now I'd like to introduce our industry guest speaker, Ian MacMillan, Chief Product Officer and co-founder of Beauceron Security. Starting his career, Ian initially pursued work in graphic design and worked as a freelance graphic designer for a few local businesses, creating engaging visuals and branding collateral. Shortly after entering this graphic design industry, Ian made a transition that combined both his design capabilities and natural aptitude for software development to work in front-end software development and user experience design. Since this change, Ian has worked with a number of organizations helping to craft highly intuitive user experiences and user interface in sustainability, higher education, and IT security. Notably at the University of New Brunswick in the Information Technology Services, IBM Security Division on the flagship product QRadar, and most recently as a product architect and co-founder with Beauceron Security. As Chief Product Officer, Ian's focus is the core innovation and product experience. Ian combines industry trends, cybersecurity expertise, and customer feedback to develop a product strategy that is redefining the cybersecurity awareness market and protecting some of Canada's largest brands from cyber attacks. In his spare time, Ian is an outdoorsman and gearhead, spending his off days exploring the outdoors and turning wrenches on his projects at home. So with that, I will turn it over to Ian, so I'll stop sharing. And, all right, Ian, take it away.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you, Brendan. I really appreciate the introduction. Good afternoon, folks. It's great to have you here. I'm just, if you want to give me a moment, I'm just going to get set up with my screen share here so that you're able to see it. Okay. Hopefully you can see my screen now.
Yep.
Excellent. Okay. Just out of curiosity, Brendan, is there a way to turn on my camera as well? I'm kind of big on the camera view when I'm in these sort of calls, but it says my camera sharing is disabled. So is that not an option? It's okay. It's not critical. It's not a problem. So yeah, thank you again for the introduction. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here today to come and chat. Folks, thanks for registering and attending. I think that I'm a little bit biased, obviously, being the co-founder of a firm that serves this industry, but I think that cybersecurity awareness is a really significant portion of the cybersecurity industry now, more than it has been ever. So, and I think that's something that's going to continue to happen. So, any opportunity at Beauceron Security that we get to communicate the importance of an effective cybersecurity awareness program and its makeup, we jump right on that. And I'm privileged today to be able to be here and talk to you guys about this. So thanks again so much, Brendan and CyberNB and SIPNet for having me here. So today we're going to be talking about cybersecurity awareness programs and their crucial portion to your business and what they mean. So just before I get into that, a little bit about me. So Brendan covered it pretty well. We even use the same picture. That one floats around quite a bit. So again, I'm the Chief Product Officer and co-founder of Beauceron Security. I'm actually one of our product architects, so I designed our user experience and user interface in using our tool and actually built it. So I'm a software developer by trade, as Brendan mentioned. I originally started in graphic design, made a little bit of a pivot and combined that design expertise and my software development education together to create a career for myself in designing usable tools and experiences. And in particular, as a lot of the people here I'm sure would know, in cybersecurity, it's very much a function over form sort of environment. And in my experience, so as Brendan mentioned, sustainability, higher education, and then subsequently in cybersecurity, most notably over at IBM, working on their flagship SIM, QRadar. Again, I talk about function over form. I mean, obviously an incredibly powerful tool, and my goal has been to improve sort of the experience of these tools and make them easier for more people to use them, so that you don't have to have a cybersecurity awareness program expert specifically for an application like you have to do for some of those other larger tools out there. So in this capacity at Beauceron Security, originally as a software developer, understanding the needs of our target market, subsequently managing our customer success strategies, and now in my current capacity as the Chief Product Officer, I've had the opportunity to work with several national banks here in Canada, all the telecom companies here in Canada, a number of higher education institutions, energy organizations, government organizations, helping them use our tool to build effective cybersecurity awareness programs. And honestly, it's been a privilege to get that experience and understand the challenges and the successes that kind of span all of these organizations. Some of them are the exact same in a lot of cases. Some of them differ. And then also understanding how we can build our tool in a way that can serve their needs. And more recently, understanding these certification programs such as Cybersecurity Canada and the regulations in place on some of these more regulated industries, to understand the needs of those things and how we can meet that compliance check mark and help our customers attain certification and regulatory requirements in different ways. So yeah, it's been a really interesting experience. So I think to start off, I want to talk a little bit about sort of the anatomy of a cybersecurity strategy and where the cybersecurity awareness portion fits in. And at a really, really high level, obviously, cybersecurity as a whole is a huge, has a very large breadth. So I just want to kind of cover at the very high level what we see and how it fits in. So for most organizations, this is sort of like a basic layout of their cybersecurity strategy between human security in terms of your organization's employee awareness and understanding of their place in the cybersecurity strategy, systems and infrastructure. So that's kind of like your classic IT-oriented cybersecurity, and your physical security, which we're finding coming more into that fold with the cybersecurity strategy in more recent years, and I'll talk about that a little bit. And as Brendan was mentioning in relation to the Cybersecurity Canada certification program, obviously these different 13 certification requirements all pertain to those areas, so you can split them up. So this number 6, for example, is the one we'll be really focusing on today, providing employee training. That's one that we're seeing appear more and more often in these certification programs, where security awareness is becoming part of that cybersecurity strategy more prominently throughout all of these certification programs and through regulatory requirements. So you can pretty much divide these 13 certification requirements up into each one of those categories that I defined, and that's sort of like your overall cybersecurity strategy as a whole. So again, I'm just going to quickly touch on these parts of the cybersecurity strategy, just again to provide that context of where the cybersecurity awareness piece fits in and how it fits in with the other components in the strategy. Again, I know that a lot of the people here are probably aware of sort of like what the cybersecurity strategy is in your organization, and I'm not going to tell you how to do that, but just to give you that context of where things fit in. So as I mentioned, systems and infrastructure really is your IT-focused cybersecurity strategy. So this is your secure perimeter, your firewall, your DNS, the patch management of your systems and infrastructure. So patching your organizational devices like phones and tablets and desktops and laptops, your servers, your network controllers, things of that nature. It's your systems management as well. So that would be your malware protection, antivirus, anti-malware, things of that nature. And of course, your network protection. So your firewall, any of your DNS and routing and all that kind of stuff as well. The second part, and I made a comment about this earlier, about this being more of a focus in recent years, is physical security. So we see the physical security of an organization and its assets falling into that CISO fold more and more in recent years. So this is physical access to organizational infrastructure like servers and buildings, so your swipe cards and your identification cards, organizational device policies, so physically locking machines down to desks or to offices, things of that nature. And like I said, this has been more of a recent thing. I put a USB symbol up there for USB devices as an example. So, you know, what are the policies around use of these things and how they fit in? Because they are, although they belong as part of like an IT asset, the physical use of them is managed sort of as part of that cybersecurity strategy as well. And finally, the most important part, I think, for today that we're going to be talking about is that human security aspect. So this is the security awareness portion of your strategy and your human security. And I put a graduation cap in there because training and simulation really is sort of at the forefront of that security awareness strategies. And as you saw, so with the Cybersecurity Canada certification program as an example, that requirement is to provide some sort of user training at a specific frequency. So yeah, that's sort of at the forefront. So that user training and engagement in understanding, you know, what cybersecurity means to them and to the organization. So what is cybersecurity awareness? What does that actually mean? On an individual level, it's the knowledge and understanding that someone has about protecting physical and informational assets of an organization. So it's literally their understanding and awareness of what cybersecurity is and the context of cybersecurity to the organization, to themselves in the organization, as it relates to physical and informational assets. So it's not only understanding what the threats are, but also how to deal with them. A common misconception is that I only have to teach people how to look out for threats, but in reality, you know, a lot of the time it's actually dealing with them effectively that we can stumble into problems. So what does a threat look like? What are the indicators of an attack? What do I do when I suspect an attack? What are our policies and procedures? What are the tools at my disposal? These are all things that are really critical to an effective security awareness program, not just training people how to identify a threat, and that's sort of it. So training itself is not a means to an end. The one and done concept, unfortunately, is something that a lot of organizations take as a way to get that compliance check mark or meet a regulatory requirement to just say, okay, we trained our organization and now we don't have to worry about cybersecurity threats as it relates to our human security portion of our strategy. And unfortunately, it's just not the reality. Awareness training should be a continuous effort that occurs regularly between the organization and the individual. So it's something that has to continually happen in order to maintain that level of awareness. And what we find is, in terms of using our tool, based on the data that we have and the statistics that we have, anything like less frequent than every 3 months results in sort of a downward trend in the knowledge and awareness of the organization. So if you're not actually engaging with your organization at least once every 3 months, whether that's in a training module, a video of some kind of communication, or a phishing simulation, or a simulated attack, or a tabletop exercise, you know, just any kind of exercise that engages the individuals of your organization. If you're not doing that at least once every 3 months, you're not actually employing an effective security awareness program. It's got to be frequent enough that it actually is retained and used. So as far as our product goes, you know, we actually measure the attitudes and the behaviors of organizations, the individuals in the organizations, excuse me, when we bring them into the tool. And this is something that occurs annually. So every year they get a survey that asks them some questions about their perception of cybersecurity, their role in the organization and protecting the organization from cybersecurity attacks. And 92% of people actually believe that they play an important role, which is really good because that's something that we want to hear. We want to hear that individuals believe that they play a role in protecting the organization. However, on the flip side, 1 in 3 actually feel that they don't receive enough training to protect the organization. So you have a large set of the population that says, yeah, I know that I play an important role, but 1 in 3, again, believe that they don't receive enough training to actually protect the organization. So that's a little bit of a contrast in terms of what we see when we're surveying those users and bringing them into the tool. In terms of strategy and approach, so some of the more tactical things, this really needs to become a change in organizational culture and not so much an initiative or a project to make the organization secure. So the idea is to build in a security-oriented business culture at your organization. The goal is a good cybersecurity awareness program to actually change that culture internally from being, now that we're doing this, how do we make it secure, to more of a, how can we do this task securely? And what you see is individuals need to be encouraged and educated to operate daily with cybersecurity in mind, rather than doing their job and then considering the security implications after the fact. And that's really at the core what makes a good cybersecurity awareness program, is building that right in to that day-to-day activity. And honestly, this approach, in our research, is proven to be substantially more effective than bolting on cybersecurity as an afterthought. We see that when organizations are doing this as part of their day-to-day operations, their cybersecurity-oriented population results in a cybersecurity-oriented organization. So it's really critical that you build that in at the very core of what you're doing. An example I like to provide about this actually is accessibility. So in the 60s and 70s, when a lot of these buildings, we had a big boom in commercial construction, a lot of these buildings were being built in city centers. The thought of these large grand staircases in front of these buildings was really common. And what we found, if you look around any of the older buildings, is these concrete ramps for wheelchair accesses were poured sort of after the fact, and kind of to take away from the aesthetic of the building. So you have this ramp that's built off to the side or in an awkward place in relation to the main entrance of the building sometimes, because that accessibility wasn't in mind right from the get-go. However, over the last 40 years or so, or 50 years, if you start to look at the construction of newer buildings, accessibility is actually taken into consideration right from the onset. So you start to see buildings that are constructed and entryways constructed with that accessibility in mind, that doesn't take away from the aesthetic of the building, that integrates well and allows for good flow of traffic. And that's sort of the same example that we want to apply to a good cybersecurity awareness program. Is we're not doing these activities and thinking about how to secure them afterwards. We're doing them, as I mentioned, right from the onset and building that right into the organizational culture. So it really goes beyond IT. Although IT systems play a significant role in protecting the organization, they're not perfect. And as somebody that has a technical background as a software developer and understands sort of the workings of these systems and how they operate, I can say that with conviction that not all of these IT systems, although they are very effective, are going to solve all of your problems. And a big part of that is that the threat landscape is constantly changing. Unfortunately, cyber criminals are able to develop new methods of attacking organizations faster than we're able to develop controls to protect them. So, we see an uptick over the last 10 or 15 years of attacks on organizations and their impact, just because our ability to pivot and defend is always sort of behind the curve in a lot of ways. A great example of this actually is social engineering. So social engineering is a real and active threat, and sort of the dictionary definition of it is the use of deception to manipulate individuals into divulging confidential or personal information that may be used for fraudulent purposes. And essentially what that means is it's someone trying to attack my organization, whether they're sending me a malicious link or a malicious file, or they're impersonating someone that I would trust to try and get me to provide access or information to the organization. And I provided a phishing email here sort of last minute to show you what that looks like. So in this case, I've moved this to junk already, but this is a really interesting email for any of you technical folks that are out there. So you can see I've got this email that indicates the delivery of 9 new incoming emails to my inbox were rejected. I have to use a secure portal to access these emails before they're permanently deleted. So obviously my concern is like, oh no, what if I've missed an email from a customer or a partner in some way? And you can actually see the link at the bottom, and I've displayed it here in a way that you can see what the link actually was. So portal.beauceronsecurity.com/Ian-rejected-messages, and it actually links to some epicgamesplay.com/rejected address. What's really interesting about this, if you look at the top, the sender is actually from me. It's sent from Ian@beauceronsecurity.com by a SendGrid, and SendGrid is a cloud provider for mass email. So as a matter of fact, there are a number of phishing providers out there that use SendGrid to send phishing simulations to organizations. So the criminals are actually using the same tools that we are to attack us, that we're using to help educate people to stay safe. For you technical folks on this call, what's really interesting is this email actually passed SPF and DKIM through SendGrid because we have set up SPF and DKIM through SendGrid. So when I received this email, to look at the email headers, it passed all the checks, the basic checks related to email security, and when it was delivered to me. So it just takes sort of that split second of not realizing what I'm looking at, being concerned about these emails. They're leveraging my emotional ties to my busy inbox to try and get me to click this link and visit a page and potentially download some malware. So this is an example of security, of social engineering, which I think is a really good one. And the question is, how do you catch a wolf in sheep's clothing like this? So an IT system could look at this, see the SPF check, see the DKIM check, give the check marks. I mean, it's just somebody emailing me, with a link. In this case, there are some controls that you could have in place for sure that could identify this. But in some cases, I have other phishing emails where it's an email from my CEO, David Shipley, that says, I need to speak to you, can you email me back? And that one lands, right in the inbox with no warnings or anything. So you have to watch out for some of those. So what's really interesting about this, the point I'm trying to make here is your security awareness program should aim to transform your individuals from sort of passive victims of these kinds of attacks to active defenders, sort of from that sheep to sheepdog mentality. Instead of building your secure perimeter around your individuals, around your employees, the theory of a good security awareness program should be to actually educate them as a new layer of security within the organization. As I mentioned, passive victim to active defender, sheep to sheepdog. And in our case, a Beauceron is actually a breed of sheepdog. It's sort of like our mantra. That's how we come by the sheep to sheepdog piece. And as I've shown here on the left-hand side, so that human security piece actually becomes part of your layered security and defense of your organization. So not only do you have your secure perimeter with all of your IT controls, and then you have your threat detection and remediation with your additional security tools in place. Now the human aspect becomes sort of your human security or human firewall portion of your cybersecurity awareness strategy, or your cybersecurity strategy as a whole, excuse me. We aren't resourced for this. So I'm sure there's some of you here that are saying, okay, how do I train my new employees, retrain existing employees regularly, simulate attacks against them, remediate the individuals that fall victim, reward those who don't, and report and manage all of this with the few people that I have. And that's really a common theme when it comes to cybersecurity awareness. So under resourcing, we have customers, there are organizations out there that I know of that have 50,000, in excess of 50,000 employees, and their cybersecurity awareness team is a team of 2. So like a 1 to 25,000 ratio. So how do you effectively manage the training, the education and awareness of employees with turnover, with new hiring, to meet these certification requirements, in some cases regulatory requirements from more regulated industries with such a small team? And the answer is automation. Automation is critical to the success of a comprehensive security awareness program. So in our case, with our tool, for example, that's literally exactly what we do, is we take those activities around the training and simulation and remediation, and we automate all that. So the idea is the tool runs on its own, manages that training of new employees as they come on board. We integrate directly with your systems. It remediates them when they fall victim to a simulation. You're able to report on that and get that very granular reporting down to job function or hierarchy of the organization, department, et cetera, to find gaps in education or awareness in the organization. And the theory around that is to free up the valuable time of your cybersecurity resources to play a more proactive role in defending the organization. So, you go from having this reactive approach that we need to train these people because we recently, had a spree of phishing against us, to now the users are already trained, so we can start to think about what is the next step? What do we want to do to improve this awareness beyond just the check mark of compliance of providing training? That's the idea. So statistics matter. I'm a software developer, so I'm the analytical type. I like the numbers. So in our research across all of our tenants, 94% of detected malware in medium-sized companies is received via email. 94%. So the injection of malicious software or malware in an organization most of the time is coming in through email, means of email. 1 of 3 employees rarely or never think of cybersecurity at work, which is a little bit of a concerning statistic when you consider my previous statistic, which was 92% of individuals believe they play an important role in protecting the organization. So, you have a large set of the population that actually believes they play a part. 1/3 of them don't believe they receive enough training, and then 1/3 of them actually don't even think about cybersecurity on a day-to-day basis. So they know it's important, but they do not actually think about it when they're working. And as a matter of fact, what's a great example of that that's comparable is in sustainability. So I have some experience working in a software company where we tracked sustainability and did some calculation around sustainability of the organization based on some of the things that they were putting in place as it relates to green energy, et cetera, et cetera. And it's the same case where individuals are aware of an issue like climate change, for example, but they actually don't know what they can do to play a part in that, and they actually don't know what they can do to contribute, or they don't think about it. So in this case, raising that awareness, having an effective program that will allow you to train those individuals, build that in as part of the culture, means they're now thinking about it all the time, and they're using it as part of their day-to-day. 96% of IT workers say that cybersecurity training contributes to reducing incidents. And I think this is a testament to say that it's not just the cybersecurity awareness folks that think awareness is important, it's also the IT folks, the technical folks. So the majority of IT-oriented folks in the SOC, for example, your security analysts, your network analysts, your software developers will say you have to have an understanding of what threats are, what they can do to you, and how to protect yourself from them in order to protect the organization. So yeah, it plays an important role. And then based on our research, so as part of that attitudes and perceptions, attitudes and behaviors survey that we do as part of our tool regularly, we measure perceptions about use of different tools. So things like password hygiene as an example. And across all of our tenants, the #1 most common negative cybersecurity behavior relates to password hygiene. So this is things like sharing passwords for work use, reusing passwords on third-party websites, things not using a password manager, things of that nature. And again, this is visibility that a lot of these organizations have no idea. We get organizations where we roll out our tool, they onboard their users, and they're like shocked to see that 40% of the organization shares their work password for work use. So they're able to use that metric to drive more change in terms of educating about password hygiene and implementing a password manager, enterprise-wide and things of that nature. Just related to password use, I just wanted to share this quick little graphic that we did up and posted on our blog not long ago. So this is the time it takes for a brute force script to actually compromise your password. And keep in mind, the perception is that you have a hacker that's trying to compromise your password, but the reality is these are done in bulk batches with a script. So someone will buy a number of email addresses and compromise passwords from the black market, and they'll just go out and try and infiltrate your Facebook account or your PayPal account or whatever that might be. And some of these results are pretty staggering. So I mean, even if you have numbers, uppercase and lowercase letters in your password, and it's 8 characters long, it's about an hour to compromise your password, which is pretty standard. I mean, 6 to 8 characters, lowercase and uppercase with a number. A lot of password indicators will tell you that that's a green light, like go ahead. So yeah, we've seen a change more recently to password phrases that don't make sense, or phrases that don't necessarily compute well, but they mean something to you personally. And again, the use of a password manager that uses sort of like a salted hash of 32 characters or whatever that might be. Things like LastPass can help protect from that as well. So the result of this really is a positive, measurable outcome. Measuring your employees' capabilities to be secure can identify risk areas in the organization for your strategy. So, maybe your perception of your organization is different from what you actually have on the ground. You might think that your IT folks are the most secure in the organization, but maybe their knowledge and overconfidence of their knowledge makes them lazy. It's just, you never know exactly what's going to happen in terms of measuring that. And how are you doing that now? How are you measuring the cybersecurity awareness of your organization? What's your metric? How do you measure organizational departments or individuals at an individual level? It's important to assume as well that not everyone is aware of the dangers of the internet. So, for example, we partnered with a provincial government and we actually deployed our tool as part of the co-op program within high schools so that the students would actually take the training. So if you're not familiar with the co-op program, essentially it's a job placement for a day a week for high school students to get them familiar with the workforce. And the common misconception is that younger people are more aware of cybersecurity risks because they're more in tune with technology. But what we actually found when we were measuring the perceptions of these individuals, these young people, was they actually lack the skills to understand the dangers because these things were already in place as they enter the workforce for them. So those of us in sort of that middle range between seniors and young people that adopted these technologies as we entered the workforce, we were educated. It was part of our onboarding to these tools to understand what the risks were, how to use them effectively, et cetera. But we're not providing that same granularity to the younger generation that comes in. So we actually found that young people are on about the same spectrum as seniors as it relates to their cybersecurity hygiene and their behaviors as it relates to technology. So it's important to give your employees and your individuals the skills to properly identify threats and then understand how to deal with them, as I mentioned before. And by enhancing their ability to recognize danger, they'll subsequently protect the organization if they're properly educated. A really good example of this actually is AED training. So it's automated electronic defibrillators. So around the time that they were becoming really popular, I was in high school, and in my phys ed class, we actually took training on how to properly identify someone with a cardiac issue and apply and use an AED. And because I received that training, through 2 or 3 classes of phys ed, I'm able to identify someone that's having a cardiac incident and then properly use an AED that could save their life. So the same applies here in the concept of raising that awareness, educating your individuals and your employees on how to identify those threats and subsequently deal with them, can protect the livelihood of your organization. So what's the flip side? What if we decide not to do any cybersecurity awareness program? Well, according to IBM's 2020 cost of a data breach report, the average cost of a breach is approximately $3.86 million US on average. And I wanted to share some additional statistics for context on that because the 3.86 million on average doesn't really give you the full breadth of the impact. So for example, in 2017, Equifax had a breach of 147 million Americans' personal financial information. So that doesn't include the users from the UK and Canada that were also compromised. And according to the US Federal Trade Commission, they had to pay 700 million in fines and compensation as a result of that breach. So that actually makes up 20% of their revenue. It's a substantial hit to them from the perspective even just of the fines and compensation, not to factor in the impact to the reputation as well. Interesting fact about the Equifax breach in 2017, the CEO of Equifax at the time, who later resigned as a result of the incident, actually blamed the breach on a single employee who failed to patch their machine. One person responsible for $700 million in fines and compensations. It's pretty substantial. And I mentioned the reputational damage. So 58% of consumers will stop buying for several months from a company that experiences a data breach. This is from Bitdefender's Business Insights. And then 20% of consumers actually never return to a company that has had a data breach. So imagine if you had 20% of your customers not come back, or lost 20% of your customers right now. What kind of impact would that have on your business? This is a really great graph. I think it really shows sort of the ramp in the last couple of years of the impact of these attacks. So this is a graph from CSE's Center for Cybersecurity here in Canada, and it shows the average ransom payment over time since Q3 2018 to Q1 2020. And you, I mean, you can just see the substantial increase there from about $10,000 on average in Q3 2018 to $145,000 on average to Q1 2020. And I would say, based on some other stats I've done for some other talks, not only are they more expensive, but they're more frequent. So you're seeing more and more of these happening, and they're more and more expensive. So the criminals are doing their own analysis and determining what will make them money, and that's where they're pinpointing their attacks. So that's in business email compromise, like phishing, and then also ransomware payments as well, and ransomware through malware. And are we really at risk? Is this something that's actually going to attack me and my organization? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is happening in our backyards every day. The perception is often that it's some other company in another country at a level that we won't achieve. Like Equifax, where it's $700 million in compensations because it's 147 million records that were taken. Yeah, absolutely. But it happens at scale, down to small organizations and right up to large ones. So a couple of notable examples here. City of St. John in late 2020, they were hit by a cyber attack that shut down their IT systems. It was a ransomware attack, so that was a municipality. Human University in 2017, so they lost 11.8 million in a phishing attack. And the president of the university actually came on and said, this was a human error. It was not, all of our IT systems and financial systems were in place and working correctly when this happened. That one actually is really interesting because a cyber criminal impersonated a contractor that was part of a capital project and actually changed sent in a request to change the accounts payable information and started sending invoices, and the university paid them. And by the time they had realized it had happened, it extracted 11.8 million from the university. The CRA, so right at the federal government level even, shuts down online services. That was in the middle of 2020, it was in August. And then, that's when it was reported on. And then the city of Burlington, falling for a $503,000 phishing scheme, again, June 2019. So this is over, we've got one from 2017, and then a couple in between until 2020. So yeah, I mean, like I said, these are happening all the time. In 2020 in particular, there was a huge uptick in municipalities. So there was a number of attacks all over the US, all through Canada. Can't remember if it was 2019 or 2020. It might have been 2019 actually. So the city of Atlanta brands itself as a hub for cybersecurity firms, one of the most cyber secure cities in the US. They had a data breach as well, huge impact to their reputation and to the cost associated with the cleanup and to city services. So yeah, this kind of stuff is happening more and more often, and as I mentioned, right in our backyard. So this component of awareness is critical to ensuring the security of your organization. So with that, yes, that's essentially my presentation, sort of explaining how critical it is and what the anatomy is of a good cybersecurity awareness program. I've got my email, our info email up there as well on our website. So feel free to reach out if you have questions or comments, and check us out at beauceronsecurity.com. As Brendan mentioned, we're a partner with CyberNB. They've been very great. They've been great to us. And a lot of certification programs like the Cybersecurity Canada program can help you get, sort of the basics down, including cybersecurity awareness to get started on the path of a great cybersecurity strategy.
Perfect. Thanks, Ian. That was a great presentation. Are there any questions? I don't see any in the chat yet. All right. I guess there's no questions. So thanks everyone for joining, and thank you, Ian, for presenting. That was great. Oh, sorry.
Hi there. This is Gautam this side. I just had a quick question from Ian.
Certainly.
First of all, Ian, that was a great presentation, really insightful on the details about the importance of cybersecurity. As you mentioned that in the past, you have your company has worked with clients in different sectors, one of them being from banking as well. So I just had a quick question. As we realize that Bitcoin is more of there on the one of the topics that will be there in the future, like people will be having transactions through Bitcoin. So is
Mhm.
there anything in the store in terms of any product that you or the organization is planning to bring forward to stop those attacks on Bitcoin transactions and things related to that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So in our case, as it relates to the awareness component, we don't really see a lot of requirements for awareness in specific topics necessarily like Bitcoin. It's a really valid point because it's again one of those new things that everybody's sort of jumping on board with. So yeah, I mean, in our case, what we try to do is a more, I would say, a more generalized awareness right now is what we need. So we see a lot of organizations really just lack even the basics of understanding how not to identify a phishing email, as an example. So the concept of protecting from a Bitcoin transaction or how to protect your Bitcoin transaction from being intercepted, as an example, that's sort of out of the realm of what we see on the ground for cybersecurity awareness. So I would say right now, to answer your question more specifically, I don't know of anything that provides education or awareness about Bitcoin in particular. But yeah, I mean, that's a really great point.
Yep. Yeah, but certainly what I think down the line, if you see the trajectory, like for sure multinationals would be moving, corporations, they would be thinking about this way of transactions.
Sure.
So
Yep.
down the line, maybe that can be one of the products from Beauceron Security.
Yeah, appreciate the insight. Absolutely.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for your question. Any other questions? I love questions. Really open to discussion, and so yeah, if anybody has a question, feel free. I'm happy to answer it.
I have a question.
Certainly, go ahead.
Hi, this is Carol from Remap. A lot of large organizations can afford the third-party or outsourced awareness training. I was just wondering what you would recommend for SMEs, and as well as how you would determine whether an awareness training developed in-house would be adequate or not.
Yeah, for sure. It's a great question. So what we typically see for those SMEs, we partner with a number of managed service providers. As a matter of fact, Bulletproof Security is one of them, to offer our service as part of their SOC service, for example. So in the case of Bulletproof, like they would do a managed service where they do all of your network security and your secure perimeter and all, email security, all that stuff, and awareness is included as part of that package. So we have a couple of different partners that we do that with. In terms of bringing that in-house, like absolutely, but I'll mention that the automation really is part of that. Like even if you're a 1-to-5 ratio, so let's say you have one security awareness person or one security person that does awareness to 5 employees, even managing that in some cases can still be a challenge because you've got, that consistency is the requirement. So I would say, yeah, absolutely bring it in-house if you think it makes sense. But make sure that you're leveraging some kind of tool to do that automation because it's going to make your life way easier. And I mean, in our case, even we do direct deals with folks as well, where they take our product in-house and then they use it. They leverage that automation to deliver that program with their internal resources. Does that answer your question, Carol?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect.
Hi, I have a question. This is Hernan Popper.
Hi there.
I wanted to hear your thoughts about phishing. How often should people in an organization be phished? If it is something that should be done every week, randomly, every month? I've heard many different opinions about it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a phenomenal question. So it's kind of ironic, really. It's kind of funny because we essentially in the industry now measure the effectiveness of our awareness program solely on the results of phishing. So just based on whether or not someone clicks on a phishing email, we base our entire level of awareness on that, which is pretty crazy. And at Beauceron, we're actually working now to find other ways and other metrics, other behaviors as indicators. In terms of the phishing, to answer your question about frequency, so it's kind of a two-part question. Typically in the phishing space, the phishing simulation space, the campaign approach is what we see. So I have a sample set of users, sometimes my whole organization, and I phish them all at once with one template. Or I'll phish a quarter of them with one template and a quarter with another and a quarter with another. And what we actually see is we call it the gopher effect. So you have all of these individuals getting the same email at the same time, and they start to communicate with each other about that. Right when I was at IBM, that's how they did it to us actually. So someone would get on Slack and say, there's a phishing email, watch out for it. And it really skews the actual results of that campaign. So what I would say is, with our tool at Beauceron Security, a little bit of a plug here, but we kind of changed the approach to that where we do a randomized automated approach. So every user gets a different phishing email randomly, and you're essentially just setting the interval. And you can set that at different parts of the organization. So maybe you want your executive to be longer or your IT folks to get it less frequently, like however you want to do that. More specifically, to answer your question, the frequency really after that 3-month area, you really start to lose any effectiveness. So if you're phishing, say, semi-annually, like once every 6 months, for example, the effectiveness is virtually zero of improving your awareness. But any more frequent than about a month, we start to see frustration about that and lack of actually reporting that email. So you actually get the reverse effect where folks don't want to participate just because they're frustrated with the fact that they're getting these phishing emails. That 1 month frequency is the sweet spot. So almost all of our customers phish on a monthly basis. And what we actually do is we actually do it on calendar month. So a user might get an email, a phishing simulation rather, on the 20th of January, but they could get one on the 10th of February, and then they could get one on the 30th of March. So it's mixing it up sort of to make it a mixed bag to really simulate what an actual environment would be like. And again, as I mentioned, they don't get the same simulation twice, and they don't get the same simulation on the same day and time as the person next to them. So we're really mixing that up. So my answer is two-part. The randomization is an important factor. It contributes to the effectiveness, and then also any less than 3 months, and you're really not getting any effectiveness, and any more frequently than a month, you're just kind of frustrating your population. Does that answer your question?
Yep, appreciate it.
Excellent. Yeah, no, my pleasure. I love talking about the phishing. The phishing is the cool stuff, in my opinion. Other questions?
All right, great. Well, thanks, Ian, and thank you everyone for joining. We'll see you next month for our next webinar session. Thanks a lot.
Great. Thanks, Brendan. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Not a problem. Have a good day.